Hi, my name is Matt Dralle and I'm a private pilot, and I got my license in 1986 and quickly realized that the Cessna 172 I was flying didn't have enough performance for me, so I decided to look into building my own airplane called an RV-4, which is this plane right here, and started that construction in, like I said, 1988. And a few years later, I was working on the instrument panel and realized that there wasn't a fuel flow gauge that satisfied me, and so I set out to design my own, which is this guy here called the Fuel Scan, that I designed and marketed under the name Metronics.com. And quickly I realized I needed a faceplate for it, which is this, and I went out to some local CNC milling houses and had some prototypes built, but it was horrendously expensive and the process took a long time, so I decided to get my own milling machine and do a lot of prototyping on my own, which is basically what this faceplate here is. This is the Fuel Scan hardware, and there's the CPU board and the power supply board and the display board here with the LEDs and LCD and the push buttons. And then the faceplate here, you can see, is hollowed out in the back and fits right over the top of that like that. LEDs show through, LCD here, push buttons there, and then all of that goes into this enclosure here, much like that, and then that fits right inside the instrument panel, just like that, with 4 screws, and you're good to go. So that was about 1994 that I started that process, and a couple years later I finished it and began marketing the product and been selling them ever since. And so then let's take a look at the milling machine itself over here. This is a Jet 830 manual milling machine that I bought in the mid-90s and did the conversion to retrofit for CNC, which included building these motor mounts for these stepper motors on the X and the Y and the Z axis. Connected it to a, at the time, popular CNC controller, and was able to machine these parts, starting with a solid block of aluminum like this, and then it milled out the front side out of that same block, and then it milled out the back side like that, and then the last thing it did was cuts the complete part out. And I did a lot of prototyping with it to get me to this final part that fits perfectly, which saved it a lot of money, because going back to a CNC company to get them to change one little thing here and there ends up costing a lot of money. So ultimately saved a ton of money, and I have a nice milling machine to do other work with. So in the 90s there was a controller company that was pretty popular, which I used, and it worked fine, but the card they used became incompatible with PCs, modern day PCs, and so I had to, basically it went obsolete and wasn't able to use it anymore. And the machine just sat for about 25 years, and about that time I found Buildbotics, and they made a new controller that didn't require a PC card interface and just connects over the Ethernet just fine, and hooked it up. Was able to modify the existing stepper motors and plug it right into the Buildbotics box. And I also at the time added this new knee axis to it, the 4th axis, which is really nice because it brings this whole knee up and down, which I had to do manually before. So I'm looking forward to the new added functionality of automated knee axis with the Buildbotics. And the Buildbotics has worked out great. It works really well, it's real fast, and software is easy to use, and it's very easy to configure. It didn't take very long at all to get the stepper motors converted over from the old configuration to the new Buildbotics configuration, and so I'm looking forward to milling some new parts with it. The Buildbotics controller supports limit switches on all 4 axes, and I've incorporated those into my milling machine here for the Z axis with these standard little limit switches, and then down here on the X axis, these are actually magnetic reed switch limit switches, and this is on the X axis, and then the Y axis here's one right there, and there's one farther back, and then the A axis for the knee is down there and there for the limit switches, and they work fantastic. And the Neat thing about them is it lets you home the machine on all 4 axes with the push of a single button, which is really nice and works out really well because you always know where your machine is that way. Since stepper motors don't provide positional feedback, and I wanted to make sure I knew where the machine was, I added these linear scales up here. This is just the readout box, and it provides X, Y, and Z, and then this is for the knee axis, the A axis. But to incorporate this positional information, you have to put actually a linear scale on each of the axes. And so that required me to add these additional units here, and then underneath here for the Y axis. And then the knee axis is another unit on that side over there. It's the linear scale for the knee axis, and it has a little cable that attaches in here, connects up to the meter up above. The Buildbotics controller also supports these AC Tech VFD units to control the spindle motor speed and direction, and it allows me to select anywhere from 1 RPM up to about 4,000 RPM through this box here, which has a RS-485 connection to the Buildbotics box and a digital data connection to here to do the control of the speed. And the originally the Jet 830 mill had a standard single phase motor on the back, and you adjusted the speed through the belt up here, but that's not very practical for CNC work. So I replaced it with a 3-phase motor that is then allows me to fully control it with the VFD controller here, and so I can do tapping with it with a real slow speed in, and then stop it and then back it back out again, and it allows me to select any speed I want to, so I don't have to ever mess with the belts up here, which is pretty nice. Buildbotics really incorporated nicely with the AC Tech over the 485. The Buildbotics controller also comes with these pre-connectorized cables for your stepper motors, as well as a connector for the power supply, and they're pretty easy to wire up. You just connect them up to the motors like this, and then plug it right in the back of the box, and you're good to go. And there's also a DB25 connector with a breakout box for hooking up limit switches and the VFD and other I/O devices you might have. Additionally, you can purchase this little webcam with it, and it plugs right in the back in a USB port here, and then you can set it up on a tripod to basically watch your machining operations from afar. The application actually has a little web window that you can look at and keep an eye on your progress from the internet, which is pretty cool. Additionally, the Buildbotics comes with this gamepad controller here that lets you exercise all the axes. There's the X-axis, the Y-axis, and then the Z-axis, and as well as the knee axis. You can do it all from the gamepad, which is nice because it lets you set up an exacting position for yourself, exactly where you want it to be. And then from the controller, you can say, okay, that's what I want 0 to be. So it works really well. I'm very pleased with that functionality. It's been very helpful. One of the beauties of the Buildbotics controller is that you don't need a dedicated PC for it. All you need is a web browser and a network connection via Ethernet to the box. And there's lots of things you can do right from this controller. Here, this is the main control page. It shows you here the limit switch values currently. And then this is the breakout box with all the wiring on it. As you can get to the help menu here, it has all the manual pages for the box, how to hook it up, how to wire it, how to use it. It's all dedicated right there. And so from the controller here, we could jog with these buttons here. We can make the machine go in any axis we want. We can home the axis here. And under the motors, motor 0 is the X-axis, and then we can do all of our settings right from this web page. Motor 1 is the Y-axis. We can set everything here. Motor 2 is the Z-axis, and then motor 3 is the knee, in my case, or the A-axis. And you can download new firmware right over the internet here through this interface, and it works very slickly. I've upgraded a couple of times, and it's just a button click and it works. No fuss, no muss. And so again, it's really nice because you don't have to have a dedicated PC for it. Literally, you could do it from your phone if you wanted to. You can control your machine. You could watch the video from your phone. You can load up a CNC file and run it right from your phone over the internet. You don't even have to be local. You could my box is on the internet, so I can get to it from wherever I happen to be to check on the status of a long operation, for example. So it's really cool. I really do like it. It's been a substantial upgrade from my previous foray into CNC machining. So my hat's off to the Buildbotics boys for really bringing it with a fantastic product. During the 25-year hiatus of using my CNC machine, I started and finished an RV-8 airplane kit as well, and test flew that in 2010 and been flying it ever since. So now I've got about 400 hours on the RV-8, and with the successful conversion of my Jet 830 mill to the Buildbotics CNC controller, I can finally get back to the RV4 project and get that off the ground. If you're interested in doing a CNC conversion of your own, I highly recommend the Buildbotics controller. And if you have any questions on your conversion, feel free to email me at the address at the end of this video. I'd like to thank you for watching this video, and have a nice day.